Hello, good afternoon everybody, and welcome to another Art for All group at St Christopher's Hospice. And today I'm actually in St Christopher's Hospice, and I'm in one of the wellbeing rooms. So when the hospice is open, this room is normally used for complementary therapy treatments, beauty treatments for patients who are currently resident on the wards, or sometimes outpatients who are coming in to use the anniversary centre. And it's also open to different people with links to the hospice if they have a referral needing complementary therapy or relaxation. So it's a very calming, very beautiful room, and it's I suppose maybe it's an appropriate setting for having an art for all group that's maybe a little bit different from what we currently do. I might normally talk to you about an art activity or something you can make at home, or about a particular artist. But today I'd like to tell you about something that happened this morning, and that was that we at the part of the wellbeing team went on a virtual tour of the Horniman Museum. We're going to be doing more of these tours. They're open for anyone in the St Christopher's community. There'll be information coming out about different museums, different galleries we might be going to, and we're hoping to go back to the Horniman Museum again, and we were very kindly guided around by Lydia and Isaac, part of the Community Action Engagement team. So I suppose I'd like to tell you a little bit about what we saw at the Horniman Museum and encourage you to join on our next tour. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to share my screen, and I'm going to show you some of the things that we saw this morning. And I'm going to scroll up here and open this up. So, lots of you, I'm sure, will be familiar with the Horniman Museum. It's in Forest Hill, so it's only a hop, skip and a jump away from St Christopher's Hospice. And over the years, our community artists have created art projects with the Horniman Museum and with the local community around St Christopher's Hospice and around the Horniman Museum. So people from Lewisham, people from Bromley, people from Southwark and Croydon, loads of people have taken part in really beautiful projects that have happened here. And the Horniman Museum was built, I think, over 100 years ago. You can see it's got a fairly kind of I suppose the style is slightly inspired by kind of Charles Rennie Mackintosh 1920s, maybe early 1910s architecture, and it's quite a striking building, and you really notice it when you drive over Forest Hill. One of the members of our group this morning was able to say that there is a totem pole outside at the Horniman Museum, and this is the second totem pole that's been installed there. There was another one that was installed just after the Second World War, and there was some of the First Nations people whose totem pole this was came over from Callander to help install it in a ceremony, and it was as a gift to the Horniman Museum. So the person in the group this morning remembered that happening. So there's even more story behind the facade of the Horniman Museum. Within the museum there are natural history galleries, there's musical instrument galleries, there's kind of galleries about anthropology, so the history of humans. There's also an aquarium, and there are also really beautiful gardens. So what did we see inside the museum? We saw this very famous walrus, and lots of you might be familiar with this chap. He's a male walrus. He is, I think, about 170 years old. He has been on trips recently. He was a feature on Brighton Pier for a while, but now he resides in the Horniman Museum. You can also see that he's a fairly rotund walrus. In fact, he's actually overstuffed, so he should not be quite this fat. But I think people saw a couple of photographs and didn't quite know how much stuffing to put in him. So he's fairly round as far as walrus goes. Walruses should be a bit more wrinkly, apparently, but he's quite well covered. You can also see all of his scars, and these are scars from fights that he had when he was alive. But he is really a symbol of the Horniman Museum and a real icon within the museum's collection. And this is the gallery next door to where he resides. And this is a gallery showing artefacts and objects from around the world. So in this gallery you can travel to Africa, the Pacific, Asia, North and South America, and they're all different forms of transport. What you can see just at the back, that's actually a wishing tree, and we read out some of the wishes on there this morning, and one person had wished that everyone could come to their birthday party, one person had wished for good health for everyone they knew, and another person had wished for ice cream. And I think all of those sound pretty good at the moment. I think the person guiding us was saying that maybe this was written by a child. I was thinking that I think I would make those wishes. I think they sound pretty good to me. So these really beautiful high-ceilinged galleries, and the Horniman Museum is not open at the moment, but hoping to go back in person when it is. And outside there are the beautiful Horniman Gardens and this really lovely conservatory. So it's a museum, but it's a museum with a bit of a difference and really with a real South London flavour. And there's also an incredible collection of musical instruments. And the reason there are so many musical instruments and all displayed at once was because the person who donated them stipulated that either all of them were on display at once or none of them would be donated to the museum. So this collector really wanted to keep their collection together and for it to be enjoyed, not just the individual items, but as a spectacle altogether. So they have this amazing, amazing collection, and you can interact with the musical instruments. And actually, once a month, I think, if you look up on YouTube, there is an event where a musician comes in, and these instruments do actually get used. So once a month, there'll be a musical event to do with the Horniman Museum, and these will be played. So I think that was really good for us to hear that actually there are some objects in the museum that are obviously ancient, so there's ancient shark's teeth from however many hundreds of years ago, but there are also musical instruments that are still played today. So it's not just things behind glass, it's actual history in someone's hands, I guess. And which brings me very nicely onto these. Speaking of hands and speaking of history, this is the oldest object in the museum. These are bone clappers, so percussion instruments, and they were made in ancient Egypt 3,500 years ago, and they are in the shape of hands. And they're very, very small, but a very significant part of the museum's history. And finally, I suppose thinking about things that are alive and real, as part of the natural history galleries, there are actually some living residents of, aside from the aquarium, there are some living residents of the museum, and these are the bees. So there is a beehive in the Horniman, and you can see it growing and living, and it was really good to see that even though the museum isn't open to the public at the moment, the bees are still there, and that they're still buzzing on. So I've given you, I suppose, a swift rundown of what we did in the group earlier today, and I would really like to invite you to join future groups. We will be putting out more publicity about things that we'd like to do, and until we're able to get places in person, we really want to help, all the people we're connected with to stay in touch with arts and music and the things that matter to us when we're not able to live life as we might normally, and to keep the things that are really important going. That's something that we're trying to do. So thank you very much for joining today. I hope that you will join again for this art group in the afternoon or for a virtual tour of somewhere. It would be lovely to see you, and if you have any suggestions about where you would like to go, please email wellbeingonline@stchristopher's.org.uk. That's wellbeingonline, all one word, at stchristopher's.org.uk, and any suggestions or requests to join, we would love to see you and hear from you. So thank you very much. All the best. Goodbye.